Hello, friends. Hello, Leslie, Kevin, Marcia Taisley, Annie, Vincent, Baruch, Guzmi, Deborah, Simon, Jessica. Hi, Jessica. And Jessica Dubois turned her camera on, and that's what we really want everybody to do, please, because we can't really feel and sense each other if it's just a bunch of white against black letters. You know, let's show the human thing here. Let's see each other so that we can feel each other. Great. Thank you. I'm Tony. Older than in the videos that you've been watching, but much better looking. And Mary, my dear friend Mary, is here to help us organize stuff. Please say hello, Mary.
Hi, great to see you. Great to be with everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks, Tony.
The event is going to go according to what you ask, because it's a Q&A. At the moment, looks like a small turnout for this event, but we're also, at least so far in the first minute, but we're also joined by people on YouTube and on Facebook, and we're going to be answering questions there too. For those who are watching on those platforms, the people that you see on the screen here, these are students. These are people who are studying the basics of the wisdom of Kabbalah in the first and second semesters of on KabU of a course called Kabbalah Revealed, which deals with the basic principles of Kabbalah, those two courses are basically an unlearning process. There's new information that is being presented, ideals and targets for spiritual work. But the big part of that is the sort of redirecting, flipping over of materialistic and egoistic concepts into ones that are aimed at altruistic ways of feeling, seeing, and eventually living and connecting. There are a lot of... So these people are dedicated at the moment, and I hope that they remain so, to learning about this and to going further and learning the methodology of Kabbalah. The questions that they're going to ask are questions mostly about what they have been learning in the semester that they're in. But of course, we're also open to hearing general questions in relation to Kabbalah from you students here at KabU and also from people online. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions about Kabbalah. So before we start, I'm going to play you this lovely video, which was just published a day or two ago by some of our content people. And then we'll return to answer questions. If you just bear with me for a sec.
The essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Who is a Kabbalist? What is his age? 18, 40, 85? Education. 3 classes of elementary school, or maybe he's a doctor of science. Profession. Plumber, doctor, or scientist. Married, single, does he or doesn't he have children? Is he poor, rich, sick, healthy? Is he male or female? According to external social characteristics, a Kabbalist is no different at all from other people. What unites all those that come to Kabbalah is just one thing, the question about the meaning of life, which burns in these people and keeps them on the trot. And they begin to search and search. What is the purpose of human existence on earth? Is there life after death? Does God exist? Does a person have freedom of choice? Is it possible to control destiny? How to become happy? The science of Kabbalah answers all these questions. What is Kabbalah? A lot of legends, falsifications, and fictions arose around this science. Kabbalah has been hidden for hundreds of years in anticipation of the time when humanity will be able to accept and correctly use Kabbalistic knowledge. Only at the end of the last century did Kabbalah begin to spread throughout the world. Kabbalah is no more and no less than a sequence of roots which hang down by way of cause and consequence, by fixed, determined rules, interweaving to a single exalted goal, described as the revelation of his godliness to his creatures in this world. Baal Hasulam, the essence of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Revelation includes 3 stages: knowledge, understanding, and most importantly, attainment. The Creator is a property of love and bestowal. The created being has a desire to receive pleasure. The created being includes the whole world: stones, plants, animals, and of course, man. This world is a reality perceived by our 5 senses. The language of Kabbalah. Kabbalistic books do not describe the events of our world, but only spiritual reality. To describe spiritual reality, Kabbalists use 4 languages. The first is the language of the Torah, which describes the upper world in the form of a historical story. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, bereshit, which means He created the desire to bestow and the desire to receive. They're called the heaven and the earth. The science of Kabbalah explains to us how to use these 2 forces correctly. The second language is the halachah. This language describes the upper world in the judicial style, or in the form of a code of laws. Third is the language of Agadah, that describes the upper world in the form of legends. The fourth language is Kabbalah. It's a very accurate and rational language of spiritual engineering. The system in which Malchut and Bina connect together and Malchut acquires the properties of Bina is called the soul. Michael Lightman, Kabbalah for Beginners, Volume 1. Malchut is the desire to receive, and Bina is the desire to bestow. It's recommended to study the science of Kabbalah and the language of Kabbalah. The process of studying the science of Kabbalah. Studying Kabbalah is not an accumulation of knowledge, it's an adventure. In Kabbalah, we study our nature, the desire to receive. We gradually attain the desire to bestow, which is above time, above space, above movement, and above life and death. Tell me, is there a better way to find a way out of the maze of deadlocks than to climb up? Look at the maze from above and see the whole picture. The science of Kabbalah raises a person to a level from which he sees the whole picture, and he attains why everything was created.
Great. So, Mary, do you want to explain to our friends here how we're going to proceed?
Sure. All you need to do is to either raise your hand. There's a little icon here on Zoom if you'd like to ask a live question. We would love it if you would turn on your camera, but that's not a requirement if you still want to ask a live question of Tony. That way, if you have a follow-up question that's related, then you'll be able to do that. If not, just post your question in the chat here on Zoom or in Facebook or on YouTube. And I have a question doc that I look at, and all those questions will land there, and eventually we will get to your question. So please don't direct them to chat. Just post a question there so everyone can see them, to make sure that that question gets posted so that we can ask it.
Yeah, to be fair, not every question can get answered. It's a bit of a lottery because of all of the questions that come in. If you're a student and your question doesn't get answered, go to the forum and ask the instructors there that question, especially if it came up strongly and it's something that you really want to know. We try to get to all the questions, but it's not always possible. But let's go. Let's start.
Okay, let's start with a live question. We have Karen here in Zoom. Go ahead, Karen.
you for being here. I am a new student, and I'm 61, which is to me important because I've been on a journey for about 45 years. And I have Kundalini, and I consider myself a light worker. And I was brought to Kabbalah by the constant coincidences that I am operating in the same way, different languaging, but the same way. And I've been through everything, the Phoenix, the everything. I've been through it so much. And I have looked for a Kabbalah group for a very long time. So my question is, what is or should I say, how does Kabbalah talk about Kundalini and the modern word? I don't have an associative word in Kabbalah yet for a light bearer, a light worker.
The name for a light worker is Israel. Israel means a desire directly for the Creator. It doesn't mean a race. It doesn't mean a religion. It means a certain kind of desire that is a spiritual gene inside of humanity, either awakened or not awakened. Now, but what Kabbalah means by Israel and is not equivalent to the term light worker or to the meaning of light worker. And Kabbalah does not deal with anything physical, does not deal with Kundalini or anything like that. It deals with the primary law of nature and all of the laws that follow from that according to our uncorrected nature. That is, there's a single law, and it splits into multiples of laws because we are degree by degree farther and farther away from being synchronized with, reflecting, being that law. The Kabbalah is the meta science. It's the meta spiritual science out of which that sees nature as a whole and functions completely above the physical world. It doesn't deal with chakras. It doesn't deal with Kundalini. It doesn't deal with any of those things. It deals with the underlying or the higher principle that builds all of those things. So there is no equivalent. I also was studied many things searching for Kabbalah. The thing that is, and I discovered when I found a teacher that many of the things that I considered to be spiritual were very important at that stage of development. In other words, they were like teas, they were like breadcrumbs, they were awakenings and so on. What's really important from the point of view of the students of Kabbalah that are sort of running Kabu for the benefit of people who want to learn it, is that you're here, is that you listen to the clues and so on, and you're here, so you have the opportunity to learn. But what is very, very important at the beginning of learning this is not to try to make Kabbalah fit into the path that you followed up to this point, because one will become very confused that way. There are the power of Kabbalah to transform people is two things. One is, of course, the methodology itself, but the material is unlike and opposite to everything that we consider to be spiritual in the path in which we arrived there. It is because most of what we have in the world that remains of what we call Kabbalah, which is the law of nature. Kabbalah is just a term for that. It's not like it's some special thing that somebody made up. It's insight into the laws. is that until we are really working on the side of the Kabbalistic definitions, we're not working with spirituality, we're working with the egoistic form of it. That is, the idea of it directed at and structured by the way the ego functions. Kabbalah is a means of exiting the ego and functioning above it. And it's not the same as any other path. And to get the benefit from it, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not for you, I don't know. But to get the benefit of it, one has to give themselves completely to the terminology and the methodology as best we can. And then it begins to affect us and change us. But it will not fit into our past experience.
My path was purely completely intuitive. Nothing else fit. I was, I believe, born like a oneness child. My heart has always been to support humanity, to love others, to always, even in spite of everything. So
yeah, well, that's the point in the heart, and that's what puts a person, certain type of person, on the path, and that's the person who eventually comes to Kabbalah. So great, thank you, and thank you for your question. Next question, Mary.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Karen. We have a live question from Baruch Alamayehu. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Please go ahead.
I love the spelling of Baruch, but what is it? It's in Arabic? It's Baruch. It's nice.
Thank you, Tony. My name is, of course, Baruch, but in my language, it's directly related to Baruch.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, it's Baruch. In Amharic, it's Baruch.
Baruch, yeah.
From Ethiopia. I have a question. When a person studies Kabbalah, he feels meaner and meaner. This suffers him. So how Kabbalah is opposite to the path of pain?
Well, where's that quote from? Or is that your experience?
No, I have been studying the Kabbalah for almost 8 months. Sometimes I feel this one, but I also take from the notes which are written on
Okay.
your books.
Got you. Great. It's a great question. Yeah. Well, the path of pain. Okay, so what Baruch said was the experience of a person in Kabbalah becomes, he says, meaner and meaner. That is, in other words, that it's not that we somehow become angels and stop being subject to the dynamics of nature, where we seem to experience good and bad. What's happening to us is that we still do that, but we're now evolving. We're using that whole system. So what is happening, Baruch, is that the ego is growing, but it's becoming corrected. It's growing for the purpose of being transformed into towards altruism. You cannot, if a person doesn't have an ego, the people who come to Kabbalah, they're the biggest egoists. They're the biggest. And because it takes that kind of force inside, awakened force, conscious force inside of a person to take on the path. My friend Igal, who I started with 20 years ago studying Kabbalah, he used to always, we'd sit in the lessons and he'd go, Kabbalah is not for sissies. You know what a sissy is? It's like, someone who's always afraid. Because we're using what the Creator gave us. We're using the fact that we are a will to receive. We're trying to learn not only what the Creator is, but we can only learn what the Creator is, what that quality is, by learning what our quality is, and our quality is opposite. If we want to reveal the whole of spirituality, we also have to reveal our own nature. And our own nature is egoistic. It's mean. But if you don't have the methodology, then we suffer. Then we're on the path of pain. We suffer, like we see the world suffering now. And I suppose it always has, but it's a lot clearer to us right now what's going on. And we see outrageous expressions of egotism everywhere. So a Kabbalist must reveal their own nature, and we call that the revelation of evil, because Kabbalah calls the will to receive the evil inclination, and that's all that's happening. But so when you can't grow unless you reveal an additional layer of egotism. So, and by the way, the reason that Kabbalah, like it said in that little video, the reason it's revealed now is because of the how coarse and how mean the level of egotism is in all of humanity. Now there's a need for Kabbalah to come. It can be understood. It can be used because our nature is becoming clearer and clearer to us. Thank you for your question.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a question from YouTube now, from Make Videos Not War. Why don't supernatural events occur in today's times like they supposedly used to? For example, the parting of the Red Sea.
Well, there's only one thing that is supernatural, and that is for a human being to function outside of the ego, above the ego. Everything else is actually nature. Even the parting of the Red Sea was also just an act of nature, but we don't understand, we don't have enough of a grip on the system as a whole to understand why that would happen at that time and for what purpose. We don't understand the purpose or the direction. So it seems to come out of nowhere for us because of a particular type of ignorance that we have in regards to those kinds of actions, and they appear to us as miracles. So those kinds of things, supernatural things, are actually happening all the time, because everything that happens in the world is happening as a result of the force of bestowal of the upper force. That is not in our nature. That is above our nature, and that is super nature for us. This is a quality that always does good, is aimed at complete fulfillment of the other, and is completely selfless. It has no self. And in fact, we really don't either, because we're really, ultimately, what it wants to do is to free us and to give us that same ability, that freedom and that ability to function in exactly the same way, supernaturally above the ego. I know there's a lot of kind of new spins on that I threw out, but I hope you'll consider that.
Hey, Simon Dorlock, welcome back. I recognize you from other broadcasts. Great to have you here. Go ahead, you can ask your question.
Can't hear you for some reason, Simon. Oh, now you're...
Yeah, no, it's me. I do wrong things. Hello, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good evening from Malaysia. Okay, just a simple question. What is the difference between atsumah and reshimot in terms of desire, in terms of, let's say, in bracket, data? Is it a difference between atsumah and reshimot, Tony?
I'm not catching the first word.
Atsumah is mean, from a plant, the germ. We call in Kabbalah words, we call atsumah.
The essence, the basis, and then you're saying, what's that compared to reshimo?
Yeah. From a plant, the essence of the germination. That's why I was read the word atsumah. Maybe I pronounce not properly. There is a difference between, let's say, okay, forget about atsumah, the desire of a plant and the reshimot from the speaking creature is different to not in terms of desire.
Well, I'm going to take your question and take it out to a general comparison, okay?
Okay.
the desire of a plant, you could say, is like the desire to grow from below upward. It's a reaching for the light. There's a lot of things in that, like in the freedom that speaks about. Is that what you're referring to? That whole thing about free will? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but for a human being, especially on the spiritual path, reshimo are actually memory of states that we had prior to descent. So they are, say, seeds or DNA in a sense that spiral down from the point at which we were in complete wholeness as a single creature in relationship to the Creator. And they represent the way in which we descended and also the manner in which we climb back up. We see the same principle on a kind of model level, a little reduction, a little model, when we look at what happens with plants and so on. It's exactly the same principles of how light evolves a creature into physicality, and then how we rise and go back up. But it's all, with the plant, it's all contained within the physical as an object lesson, as an example for us to contemplate as natural scientists, and then begin to understand that it's really dealing with lights and vessels and so on, and that the human experience also partakes of that thing, and not just on the physical level, but on the emotional, psychic, and most importantly, as you said, the level of desire. Our level is the same. Our desire is the same as the plant, and that's to ascend towards a greater and greater connection or light. But there's a guidance system in it because it was structured from above downward. We just have to follow the examples or the memory. We call these examples that the Creator gives us of the difference between our current state and the next state. That example that's sort of given to us that we feel as shame or as difference between what we feel we are and what we would like to be, and this is especially in relation to other people. That is like a memory to us, in the sense. It's a poetic way of saying that we get an example of the growth of our ego compared to its corrected state. But the reason that it's called a reshimo or a memory is that this path is the same for absolutely everybody. Everybody who experiences these things is experiencing the same type of work in the transition, the same type of feelings of inclusion and bestowal, and the same inner changes. Why? Because it all comes from one thought. It is a single holistic system. And we are a single creature. And that's why we understand each other and why we have all of this in common. Your question's very general, so my answer is also that way.
Thank you, Tony.
Hey, thank you, Simon. Again, good to see you. We have another live question on Zoom here. Yafa, please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yes. I have a few questions. One is there any correlation between reshimot and 125 degrees or levels?
Yes, I mean, basically that's how they are. That's how all of these tiny incremental genes, spiritual genes, or insights, encounters with correction, how they're divided up. It's not really a number. Correction is a process. It's an openness, and it is a kind of an annulment and acceptance, a conscious acceptance of what the light is asking us to change. All this stuff becomes a lot clearer to us the further we go in the study and start doing the practical aspects of the methodology. Right now, in these classes, you're learning, as I said, you're learning targets and you're learning principles. But when further on in your study, the practical aspect of Kabbalah comes in, and you start working with other students. Now, our attitude towards others begins to represent the entire work, because the tool that we were given in order to make this correction, this quality of correction that we can say is like 125, or we can say it's 600,000, or excuse me, it can be broken up in a lot of different ways in order to express certain stages of growth. But basically, all of those things are happening in the relationship between us and in our attitudes towards others. We can only feel the quality of the Creator in the quality of what's between us, in the awakened part of us, which is we start out feeling as me, and we end up realizing that it is what is common. It's what's in the center between all of us, because the soul does not exist in us. The soul is what exists between us. We're not anything. But the quality of relationship is the only place where that quality of the Creator exists. It's a quality. It's not a point. It's an entire system, and the entire system of relationship, attitude, love, and care can only exist between. And since we are all one being, there has to be a forum, like a form, in which these reshimo and the correction can be experienced, and that has to be between people. And that's why Kabbalah, by the way, is really the technology, the answer to the problems of global connection that we have now. Global connection is a tremendous opportunity for us. It means to begin living as the collective soul, as the single soul against the Creator that we are, the single creature. We haven't done that since we were created. But we don't know how to live this way. We only know how, once we have access to everything and everybody, the only thing we do is we steal. So from everybody, now we have the opportunity to steal from everyone. How do we live? How do we live if we are a single, interrelated, holistic whole? That's what we're up against in the world. The methodology of Kabbalah shows us how we unite with concern and mutual responsibility towards each other. We have to change our own nature. Each individual part has to change its nature to want to live for the well-being of the whole. That's how we express our correction. And that's why this is the time to do it. Next question.
Okay, Tony, the next question comes from Dana Bernbach. Hi, Dana, I see you here. Glad that you're with us today. Dana would like to know, are the reshimo akin to the Akashic records?
No. There's no connection between those things. There is, reshimo means that everything's known. So, you can say that it's a concept, a similar kind of concept. Everything's written, everything's known. But that's because that everything emerges from a single thought, from the thought of creation. Everything that happens happens according to that blueprint, and nothing else happens. And the whole direction of what we think of even as our most personal experiences, we're all in that initial thought. Everything is known, the outcome is known. The question for us is, do we want to be part of that system that we live in consciously? Do we want it to function through us, or are we resisting what is already written? that is I could say that is how I understand what the Akashic records really mean in nature.
Okay, next question is from Henry Benware Sr., a YouTube viewer. Who made the 125 levels or steps to Adam Harishon?
Nobody made them. It's the way that human awareness can express the idea of something to someone who's not on that level. Numbers have to do with qualities, as I said just before, not with an accumulation of 125 little things. But there is a reason why 125 is there, because there are 5 worlds and there are 5 parzufim, and there are steps inside of them too, and there are, there's a technical aspect to the emotional and cognitive life of the creature, of the human, and that's laid out by the Kabbalists in the science of Kabbalah, and the way in which these worlds work. The entirety of all of those parzufim, or faces, or aspects of worlds, and the growing awareness and consciousness of a person as they ascend through all of these worlds. In other words, they start from pure egotism to a place of pure bestowal, and that represents encompassing all of the worlds. And this is based on the fact that reality is made of 10 sephirot, 10 basic qualities. This is getting technical beyond. Maybe I shouldn't go any further than this, really, other than to say you can also look at the 10 as 5, and so on. But the basics of this are not that difficult to understand. And in the book, Kabbalah for the Student, which is part of a book package for students, all of these charts are laid out at the back of that book. I'll share this with you. It's 1 sec. These books are for the students who are studying here for Kabbalah Revealed 1 and 2. There are 2 book packages. In part number 1, the book at the back has got all kinds of articles, and the back of the book has got technical charts. There's a whole section on the introduction to the science of Kabbalah, and there you can see why and how 125 would be a way of expressing the experience of correction, or of a person's expanding consciousness. These book packages are part of the study, and they are there's a student discount for the people who are studying, 20% discount, and we'll post in the chat. What happened here? There we go. The link so that you can get those books at your discount. You can find, if you're not a student, you can find them at kabbalahbooks.info, and it'll explain that fully if you've got a scientific bent. Let's go on.
Okay, great. We have a question from Richard Ledford here in Zoom. Hi there, Richard. I've been studying BB sources for an embarrassing long time. Just recently, I felt major changes internally. These are changes I desired 10 years ago. Now I sense them, but I'm basically the same person from 10 years ago. My desire is to keep these feelings and states I've been experiencing. How do I not lose this?
Well, you have to work with it. If things are happening, then it's a kind of a flirt. on the part of the creator, so to speak. We naturally lose these things, and we're supposed to. Gain them, lose them. Gain them at a higher level, lose them at a lower level. Gain them at an even higher level, lose them at an even lower level. But you have to know how to do it. And you can't do it alone. People really can't hold on to the alone, because when you fall into your egotism, which is to lose it, there's no rope there to pull you out. You need to be in a study environment, and it needs to be part of your world. Books are good, but they're not enough. Books are meant when we're alone and a book comes to us, or we see something on the internet or something. It's trying to bring us into that environment, and the environment means that there's a commitment on our part too. We go to the environment not only in order to learn, but also in order to help other people. And that's how, first of all, that's the goal, which is to really desire to help other people. And that's also how we don't lose our connection. Because we extend our hand to others, our heart and our support to others, and we want them to succeed. And they want us to succeed. And to succeed specifically about this. Nature, just like with plants, provides a proper environment for a particular species to flourish. Spirituality can only flourish in a garden where there's of course the right general conditions, but the right plants, the ones that are supportive, and and fertile soil, which is the books and the teachers and all that. But you can't just be a plant in the air, and it's not enough. You have to put the books, the environment, the friends together if we're going to learn to love others as ourselves, which is the only place in which we get to express the quality of the Creator. That's where we measure something. That's where we know that something is going on. So this is a kind of an environment, but the methodology is aimed at teaching us to be able to actually do that with other people, that it fixes our society as a byproduct. It fixes the condition of people, and not just people, but everything in the world. So you have to take steps if you don't want to lose it. Otherwise, in the condition, in an alone condition, you can't really succeed.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Alberto Andrada from YouTube wants to know, how do you go through day-to-day basics with Kabbalah?
I'm not sure what is meant by basics. Brushing your teeth? I mean, I'm not sure. Do you mean what would the day of a Kabbalist be like? That's a written question, right?
Yes, that's a written question from YouTube.
I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
I don't know what happened. I have.
Tony?
Mm-hmm. You're muted. We'll go to the Blitz afterwards. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. I am a person who tries to help everyone I encounter, even at the grocery store. If they talk to me and I can offer them something, always I do. I know that many people I only have a minute with, or 2 minutes or 30 seconds, but I offer them whatever I can. And then in relationships, and what I guess I'm saying is validating how important community is, because in relationships, I'll help people, and it's really interesting how they only want a certain amount of help, and you can see their ego, and you can see their sabotaging, you can see all of it coming out of them, and that's okay. I bless them, but here I am in Southern California with the only Cabo community that I can find in my heart that is heart-centered, truly grounded in Kabbalistic terms, and there's no one around me. And so, besides my husband, but
What's the question?
How, so in terms of, I have no Cabo community here, so how would I?
Okay. This is a community.
Right.
This is a community, and the more that you, if you hang with it and you continue to study, there are advanced semesters in which virtual tens or virtual working groups will be formed. And then you'll also have the opportunity for physical contact at conventions and other events that we arrange so that people who are studying virtually can also have that experience. This is not, if you try to take this stuff and build something outside, yeah. So no, we want to deliver the whole methodology to people, and that's what Kabu is all about. So that thing that you saw that was like that crazy boink thing, that's Mary, explain that thing.
Okay, so that's called a Blitz. That's have fun with next. That means that Tony has exactly 3 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. Mind you, they're short answers, but it's a fun type of competition, if you will.
Not fun for me. It's not fun for me.
It's very exciting for me, by the way, on my end of it. So that's what the Blitz is. Shall we start? Let me just set my timer. Ready, Tony?
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, let's go then. Okay, when are we going to talk about the giant brain in the sky?
When the giant foot in the sky gets off my head.
Is the quality of unconditional giving blind?
No, it is not. It is completely conscious.
Where did the 600,000 parts of Adam come from?
They come from the light originally. They are the opposite of the creator.
What can I do to stop feeling guilty?
Stop feeling guilty.
Okay, from Darren, in the 72 names of God, what Hebrew letters correspond to mate energy?
That's a wrong understanding of what those letters are in that Anabakoach prayer.
From R. Quinn, what is the language of branches? Is it a language of attainment?
Yes, it is. It is the sensation of what the actual spiritual root of something is. That is what spiritual quality exists that we experience in our ego in that particular way.
From Imran, if the heart deals with Kabbalah, then how could an artificial heart interact with Kabbalah?
It can interact with artificial Kabbalah.
Okay, from Dana, does the creator evolve and go up in worlds too?
No, the creator never changes. It always and only loves.
From Token Survivor, as I have studied Kabbalah, I found myself becoming less motivated and more indifferent. Is this the revealing of the evil in my nature?
It means that your desire for the physical world has changed. You desire something above the physical world, so you're not attracted to the same desires.
How can one connect with people that are inimical to you or think poorly of you?
You have to love them despite the fact that they hate you.
Is it okay to use psychedelic substances for strictly spiritual goals?
You can't use it for that reason. You have to use it for fun.
How do you feel about syncretism?
I feel it all the time everywhere.
How do I use the Yehudim developed by Arizal?
Say that again?
How do I use the Yehudim developed by Arizal?
These are the teachings of Arizal. Yehudim means to connect with other people and to connect to the creator.
Where should I segue in if I studied this many years ago?
I don't get it. What?
Where should I join the studies if I studied many years ago and resuming studies?
Start at the beginning. We're always at the beginning every time we open a book.
If the creature has not free will, does that mean that the mass murderers or child abusers, etc., are not responsible for their actions?
Yeah, you're responsible for their actions.
What is the spirit and the wisdom of Kabbalah?
Ruach. It's a level of similarity of form with the Creator.
Bzz, you're done.
Actually, I did have fun. Oops, you're muted.
Okay, that was 16. Excellent. Not quite breaking the record, but that was pretty darn close.
No, and I didn't mean, or maybe I did mean to belittle your questions. I'm sorry. I made them little, but the answer's little. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so the next question comes from a Facebook viewer today from Marvin Ginsburg.
Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, Mary.
Sorry,
The question about the 72 names. Everything that's written in the Kabbalistic books, it's all states. It's states of correction. Between one letter and another letter in the Bible, there is a difference between those two letters. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about the letters, and these letters don't represent anything. All that they describe is a quality of the correction of desire. It represents a state of a person on the path towards correction. This concept, which is not Kabbalistic at all, that these particular combinations of letter roots or something represent this, that, or the other thing, and they are to be meditated on. That is not Kabbalah. That is an association of Kabbalah with things that are not Kabbalah. But the fact that one can be exposed to some of these things, and even if they're presented to us incorrectly or backwards, it doesn't matter, because it builds a desire to actually know what's there, which is really what was in your question. Because even if I answered that question the way that you had expected me to answer it, you couldn't do anything with that. Okay, so what if I said like it's a soulmate or something? Then what do? It just sits there in our reason, and we feel good that we have been exposed to something that we consider to be spiritual, but that wasn't its intended effect at all. It's to make us question more and more deeply what it is that we want. What do we want out of the Anabakoach prayer? It's not a prayer. Do we really want to know what the Kabbalists are saying? What is that? That's what's important, not the answer to that question, for which there really is no vessel to receive the answer. I hope that's clear. It's probably not. Oh, go ahead. You were in the middle of asking a question.
No, that's fine. Let's go to Marvin's question. How do I get out of a state of deep depression and agony?
No, I'm sorry to hear that you're in that. You have to want to think about and serve other people. All of the suffering that we have is as a result of focusing on ourselves. That is, if it's in the realm of the human heart that is under correction. If a person has depression because they have some kind of a chemical imbalance, then the first level of correction has to be on the level of the doctor. The Creator is given permission to the doctor to heal. You have to take that route first, like anybody else. If it's not that, though, then we have to learn to think about others. I mean, you notice that when we're not focused on ourselves, when we're really like interested and engaged with other people, where we feel like, oh, that's really, or you fall in love or something. Why? Because your attention's on this person. You're watching everything. You're engaged with, you're happy with, and you want to make that person happy. It can be for mixed reasons, but even that is enough to get us out of ourselves. Depression is to implode into interest, fear, concern for ourselves, and happiness is the opposite. It's to go outside of the body, outside of the self, and to connect with others. That's where all of the joy is, because that's the quality of truth. There's no truth in here. There's nothing in here. And so when we're looking in here for an answer, we're like, I don't know where the hell we're looking. We're looking nowhere. The answer to everything that we need, our real inwardness, is our relationship to others, because our inner qualities are expressed as other people, and it's the only place we can correct them, because we correct them in the way we relate to them, not in what we understand or don't understand, but how we treat them.
Okay, Tony, the next question also comes from a Facebook viewer, Stevie VSOP. I've asked before, if someone tries to hurt me by hitting me, what should I do? I've been answered I should hit the person back. But if there is none else besides him, shouldn't I bestow and let it be? Because that is coming from the Creator.
No, first punch him. I mean, we're not detaching from any aspect of reality. What Kabbalah does is it includes all aspects of reality, which means our nature. We have to understand our nature. We have to treat it as real, and we have to not get rid of it. We don't turn the other cheek. We go above. That's where the cheek is turned. It's that despite the fact that you have to deal with all of that, it still came from the Creator, but you don't let the dog bite you. You if you have to kick the dog, you have to kick the dog. Then you look at, well, where did this thing come from? And why? There's only one answer to that, and it is in order to allow me to see who the author of this was, and to look for how this was to my development, and try to get to the place where we would do to ourselves exactly that thing in order to advance. We have to agree with what's going on and find a bridge to that, even though we're in disagreement with it, or we hate it, or it seems that others hate us. There's no way to express love, and there's no way to express faith, and there's no way to be free unless it is over those things, regardless of how they appear. We're not justified. We don't justify ourselves by allowing somebody to hit us, or thinking that we are good. We're not good. We're good and bad. But spirituality exists above that. I can't say more than that right now.
Okay, next question is from Paul. Hi, Paul. Great to have you here.
Hi, Paul.
Paul's question is the Kabbalah taught by Benei Baruch substantially the same teaching as Kabbalah studied in Hasidic Judaism?
No. There's no Kabbalah in Judaism yet. What you have is the remainder of Kabbalah. The Hasidus movement was originally Kabbalah, but there are no, as far as I know, there are no Kabbalistic teachers inside. Maybe, occasionally you may find that, but you won't find it. You'll find it in the individual. You won't find it being taught across that movement. What you find now is more just like orthodoxy with legends, and they do. I've studied there. I've studied in a Hasidic movement, and it's not taught there. They have books, but the way in which they explain or approach it is without the benefit of a living line of teachers. And Kabbalah is not religion, so it's difficult when Hasidus became basically an orthodox religious movement. It's pretty well ceased to be Kabbalah. But the books are real Kabbalistic books. They're just not alive in terms of the community.
Okay, next question. Very exciting because it's from a very dear friend of mine and a very dedicated student. On Facebook, we have John Colvord. What is the point in the heart?
It's the part of us that won't settle for anything other than being in contact with the real purpose for which we were created, fulfilling our destiny. It won't settle for the ego. It won't settle for the material world, and it won't settle for answers that aren't answers, because the heart is the one that confirms, that this is so or not. It is an unadulterated part of the will to bestow that is kind of injected into the heart of our egoism. It's that sort of one little candle that keeps spirit alive inside of the egoistic creature. And it's a desire that we want to make the kind of king, or the queen of all our desires. It's the thing that as a kid or as Karen said, I've always felt, I've always wanted. It's like this. It's that drives us for connection with the Creator's quality.
Okay, we have Buckthorn Studios on YouTube asking, if the Hebrew prophets were Kabbalists and the sages who ordered the halachah for us were Kabbalists, why does Benei Baruch choose to say all prophetic Kabbalah traditions are not Kabbalah at all?
That I don't understand the use of the terminology prophetic Kabbalah traditions. The prophets were Kabbalists. Halachah was created as a memory device for laws of the upper world, but and they're consistent with it. But it's root and branch. They're pointing to something that is a quality, a spiritual quality, and not a physical act. But the thing about all prophet, we've never said that. Maybe you mean maybe if you put it a different way, I would understand better what you're talking about. But not everything that calls itself Kabbalah is Kabbalah. Kabbalah has to have a specific result. It has to teach a person to connect with others and to the laws, spiritual laws, in such a way that they eventually exit their completely self-focused experience, exit their egoism, and function above it, in unity with other people, in absolute unity above hatred. It has to have that result. If it doesn't have that result, if it's trying to teach knowledge, that's not Kabbalah. So that's where Bnei Baruch differs from some things that call themselves Kabbalah. It's practical Kabbalah. It has to have that result. Okay.
Okay, Marcy, thank you for raising your hand to ask a question. Please go ahead.
Can you actually hear me? I'm new to this.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. I'm a little nervous. I've listened to you quite a bit. My question is, so when you say with horrible things that happen, we're sort of all involved, is what I'm hearing you say. So what would you say to someone, if we backtrack a little bit, through the Holocaust, in Auschwitz, in the worst of horrors, how would this be, work, be valued? I'm not sure how to ask that question.
I get it. I understand the question.
Thank you.
The people, specifically about the Holocaust, okay? Originally, what we call, first of all, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Kabbalist. And the original Israel was not made of what we think of now as Jews, although it is related. They are related. They were the people who followed the idea of Abraham. They came from the 70 nations of the Babylonian sort of Babel, the beginning of civilization. The only thing they had in common was an ideology, the one that I just expressed in the answer to the last question. This unity above hatred. And it is a method for all of humanity to be able to work as a complete whole in unity, which would be without violence and all of that stuff. Now, since we actually reached this in what we call the first temple, and did this consciously, we have this methodology that the world needs. It's our responsibility. You know what it says? That we should be a nation of priests, that shall bring light unto the nations. That is, to bring this particular thing that exists in the point in the heart to every desire. Nation means desire. So, for instance, what we call the Jewish people, because they descended from Kabbalists, have a responsibility to be a light to the nations and to teach the world how to achieve this unity that we need to achieve. Otherwise, the world's going to destroy itself. Because this is a law of nature, because it's in the thought of creation that this should be the outcome for all of humanity, the Kabbalists are supposed to, and by inheritance, the people who we think of as Jews are the inheritors of this responsibility. They have to be a conduit for that. If we move away from that responsibility, nature brings us back to it. And the world is not physical the way that we think that it is. This is all desire. It's all happening on the inner or on the spiritual level. We project it as physical. And until we fulfill that obligation to learn the method of unity and to bring it to the world, nature will not let us not fulfill that. So the whole point is is to correct us, to make us consciously become a force of nature, and to act as a force of nature, as a conduit for the light for the rest of the world. So its intention is good, the process that it's using is natural, and its outcome is the ultimate good intended for humanity. Our resistance makes us see things like the Holocaust, both the resistance to our responsibility, the resistance to our own transformation, the resistance to the laws of nature. There is no place where we can resist laws of nature where there isn't a repercussion. This is the highest law of nature. So imagine the repercussions that we seem to feel. Next question.
Okay, next question comes from Manoj Matani. Welcome back. I recognize your name from early this morning. I understand why bad things happen to good people, but why do good things happen to bad people? Why does a creator bless people who have no idea he exists and are unwilling to have a connection with him?
Well, what else have they got to do with their time? They're not achieving anything. They're not on the spiritual path. They might as well enjoy. We don't need those things because we're living for a different reason. When a person becomes conscious, then they begin to, they stop feeling that they want those sorts of things, and they grow. And by the way, everybody eventually does grow and evolve. But to a person who's on the path or who has a desire, they're going to receive a pushback from the creator or from the upper force in order to help them grow. Because what is valuable is something not of this world. And just being, floating downstream, merrily, 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 does not evolve us. But even the worst criminal will eventually wake up. And by the way, when they do, and they correct themselves, they bring the highest light to the lowest point in creation. So they have a special job to do. It's just coming later.
Okay, Sandro, I see your hand is up. We welcome your question. Go ahead.
You're muted, Sandro.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, the question is, from the perspective there is none else beside him, could it be interpreted just as an excuse and feel free to behave as much as is feel convenient?
Yeah, a person could use it that way, but that's not what it means. It's not enough to know that philosophically. Oh, well, the creator made me do it. The devil made me do it. I didn't do it. What we want to reach is the perception that that's our reality, that everything that occurs is an action of the force of the creator or the quality of the creator. That is, we also want it to be a quality of ours that acts through us consciously. So that means we're responsible. We're responsible to attempt to ask for the ability to be able to be the same thing as none else besides him. There's an effort on our part. Rabash told Rav Lightman, who is our teacher, said, the whole day you should be putting in every effort and feeling responsible for absolutely everything, for every dollar you earn, for everything that you try to achieve spiritually. And in the end, you should realize that whatever happened would have happened anyway, because there is none else besides him. But both of those things have to go together. The effort to feel that and for that to be real to us it's not a small thing. It's not just a matter of information. That's what religions do. They say, don't worry, there's a plan and it's all in God's hands. But do we experience that? Are we actually freed by that? No, we're just kind of cooled down psychologically, temporarily. But what none else besides him is, it's an intended state for your awareness. You would actually see the world like that. You would experience it every day and every moment like that, or at least be struggling to experience that way. Imagine what the world and what your life experience would be like if you actually did see and feel that way. So it's not an excuse, it's a challenge. That's the adventure.
Okay, here's a beautiful question from Nadav Ben Shabbat on Facebook. Why does studying Kabbalah make me want to tell everyone about it and have as many people join as possible who are around me, even though Baal Hasulam mentions that you need to keep your experiences to yourself?
Because it's life, when you discover the quality of bestowal, you want to bestow. And it's very exciting and probably very clear to you at the moment. And you found like an oasis, and you want to call everybody to this oasis. Look, life has purpose, it has meaning and stuff. Well, you can tell people about it simply by giving them material. giving them a book. If you try to tell people about it, they're going to know that you're crazy, and you don't want them to know that. You're not going to be able to explain it in ways that are going to fit the way that that particular person is built, and people basically reject the idea of bestowal or transformation, personal transformation, and certainly personal responsibility. Point in the heart knows that it's a matter of responsibility. If you give them a book, though, the material itself is probably general enough that they can get something out of it. But when you said you're not supposed to share your experiences, yeah, that's something else. The awareness that happens inside of us is really about the transformation of our own ego. If we bring those things out and start talking to them about people, it attaches to the other person's ego, and and their response attaches to you. They don't learn anything for themselves, and you get dragged down into something that you just felt so wonderful about having left to some degree. So that's why we don't share it. It's between us and the Creator, because that personal space is not what we have in common. The mutual responsibility is what we have in common. Or let's say the Kabbalistic texts that we can read, we can have that in common, and everybody can feel what the author was saying and the force behind that. They can share that. But our own individual experiences, they just try to, they weigh us back down into egotism.
Okay, next question is from Shazy Guerin. Which text and commentary would you recommend to better understand the writings of the Ari, especially the Tree of Life?
The study of the 10 Sephirot, Talmud Esser Sephirot, but you're not going to understand that. You cannot understand what the Ari is speaking about or writing about without oral teaching. You have to have a teacher. And you have to be working with other people. His work is not meant for the mind. It's meant for the heart and the soul, which is the connection to other people. And unless we're working on connection with other people, we won't understand the forces that are being alluded to there. But you can get what's it called? In the book that I showed before, which is the Kabbalah for the student, there are essays in there that explain the basic principles that the Ari is explaining in terms of human relations, and in terms of that relationship of humans to the Creator. So if you get that book, you'll find a number of essays by Baal Hasulam that will give you insight into the real forces that the Ari is speaking about. Okay, next question. And if you could put a link there to that book or to the book packages for our friend.
Okay, and the next question is from Maria Pilar Aralanos. How can you connect back to the Creator? I feel like an abandoned child.
Well, yeah, we do. It does feel like we've been abandoned, but it's because we're not listening. We can't hear our mother calling. But mother and father are always calling. The way to reconnect is by studying. The study will show you what connection actually is. What we think of as a personal reconnection with the Creator is not, that's not what it is. It's not possible to connect to the Creator without connecting with other people. This is the means by which the quality of the Creator becomes revealed. It's revealed between us. So the way that we become reconnected is by learning how to connect with the upper force. And that's what the methodology of Kabbalah is for. It's not a belief system. It's an actual practical method. And I have no other advice than that. That's why we have KabU, why the friends who are bringing KabU to you, they're students just like you, who are looking for brothers and sisters. I mean, let's carry this metaphor on forever. We have the same Father here, and this is what He told us, and this is what we're passing on to you. It is a message from that quality at the essence of life that we're all homesick for. But the family is actually here. The spiritual world is actually here. We just don't see it for what it is because we're not engaged in the spiritual force that exists between the parts. So learn.
Okay, Richard, I see you have your hand up. We welcome another question. Thank you.
Hi, aloha from Hawaii, everybody. But
Hi, Richard.
my question is kind of bestowal and giving contentment to the Creator. How are they different? I understand some similarities, but how are they different?
The Creator wants to bring us to the ability to desire bestowal over everything else. That is, to desire not to think of ourselves, but to give without a thought for self. That's what the upper force wants to do for us. If that is what we want, or we even want that, then that desire brings contentment to the Creator. In other words, it gives a place for the upper force to complete an action that is its intention. So the contentment means, like, if my daughter, if I know something that is, I have something that is of great value, and I want to give it to her, but she doesn't have that desire, then I don't feel contented. I'm worried for her. I know that she needs to develop the desire for this. And as soon as she develops the desire for this, she is going to feel such fulfillment from getting this thing that I had hidden behind my back. But it's only when her desire and my desire to give this to her are matched that the contentment happens. And it doesn't just happen for me as the father, it also happens for her. So it's a byproduct of annulment to the thing that the Creator wants to give us, which is the ultimate good that we resist, basically. I see you get it.
Okay, just a brief explanation. If you joined us since the last Blitz, Tony has 3 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. Short answer. And Tony, by the way, I saw in that last round of Blitz, somebody's laying bets on you. So
I want part of the action.
so I think he lost $1. He said in the chat. Anyway, just having to notice that. So we hope you get your dollar back on this round.
Well, did you bet, in my favor or against me? Okay, I'll do my best. Here we go.
Yeah, I can't remember how it read. Just caught my eye. Anyway, pressure's on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. When I start the timer. Okay, how is Kabbalah going to change the world?
By you changing yourself.
What is the scale of merit?
It's the ascent on the ladder.
Do Kabbalists have visions, revelations, or healing experiences?
Yes and no.
Why does Kabbalah say we only seek pleasure when love for our children and parents is totally selfless?
No, it's not. It's instilled in us by nature. We have nothing to do with that.
What happens if we do not make the corrections?
We come back and make them.
Is Dr. Lightman the Kabbalist of our generation, or is it Yehuda Ashlag? Tony said it both ways.
It's both, but he's the living one now.
Where is a creator, within us or outside of us?
It's between us.
How do we avoid infusing our ego into the desire to bestow?
It doesn't fit. It can't get infused in there. It can get confused in there.
What happens if instead of a 10, I only have a group of 6?
That's also a 10.
Okay, from Jewel, are the students of Yehuda Ashlag teaching the same Kabbalah, and why aren't they disseminating this wisdom?
Because they're not teaching Kabbalah.
If we find yourself in disagreement within our 10, do we share it with the group or deal with it privately?
You deal with the person the same way that you would anywhere else, and you also rise above it.
Does the language of branches apply to the waking life and the people in our experience?
Well, they are a branch of something in the spiritual.
Will there ever be a Congress on the West Coast, or are they exclusive to New Jersey?
They have been on the West Coast. They may be again, but for now, no, it's just hard for people to get to the West Coast.
That was from Chris. From Kevin Long, are there any words in the original Hebrew writings that do not exist in English that can kind of define something to bring awareness where no word in English existed?
Yes, most of it is like that, and yet it's still possible to get very, very close to it in English.
Are all religions fake?
No, they're just not spirituality. There's something else.
How can I reconcile these negative feelings I have when I see innocent creatures being hurt in order to provide me pleasure?
You can't right now. You have to learn to see good that does good, and you have to be able to rise above it. That's why you need the methodology.
How can the Creator allow so much pain and suffering on the planet and through the ages on the basis of bestowing pleasure to the creature?
It's not on that basis. I'm sorry.
What is happening to a person when they feel like they want to hurt others?
What's happening is they want to hurt others.
What's the point of learning all the Kabbalistic labels if everything will become clear anyway when you attain spirituality?
It doesn't become clear if you don't work at it.
How are the corrections made in Zerin Anpin?
That's an irrelevant question, really.
Hit it again. That was it. Whoever bet, I hope you bet double. This room.
That was easy. That was easy.
20. That was an all-time high. I hope you bet triple. Whoever that was who lost $1 in the last round. I should encourage people to bet.
I should bet. Listen, by the way.
Nice job, Tony.
Would you have bet against me? Because you can control it. You know, it's like the 1932 World Series. You could,
Sure. Read slower, faster.
Yeah, laugh a lot.
Yeah, good tip for next time. Thanks.
The reason I said that it's an irrelevant question is one needs to know what a correction is in the first place. So if you're asking how do you correct Zeranpin, you have to know what Zeranpin is. You have to know what a correction is. There's so much preliminary experience required, and that's not the way in which it's irrelevant. That wasn't the word I was looking for. That's not the way corrections are thought of or expressed. So I can't answer that question because that's not a real question based on the real method of Kabbalah. Nothing wrong with it. I understand, why a person wants to know these things, but it's just that's not how it works.
Okay, so before final words, Tony, it looks like we're going to wrap up. We just have a few announcements before we close out. Next semester starts February 9th. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook and you want to sign up for the course, you can do so. Just look for the links in the chat. We also have Pay What You Wish tuition if you want to participate in the course tuition, or if you simply want to spread the wisdom of Kabbalah and support that way, you can do so on a Pay What You Wish page. And as Tony mentioned earlier, there's a 20% discount if you're in Kabbalah Revealed 1 and 2 for those book passages. Those links are also in the chat. And final link, an announcement, the World Kabbalah Convention is coming up February 25th through the 27th in Tel Aviv, Israel. The name of the convention is Connecting to the Root of Life. If you have any way to go to that convention, it will most definitely change your life forever. It's a once in a lifetime experience. So thank you. Amazing questions today, very deep questions. It's great to be together with everyone today. So
You know,
thank you
what I particularly liked was actually seeing faces, seeing expressions on faces, you know, like reactions to your friend's questions and to the answers. It was very warm, and look, I'm seeing it now too. I just love it. And I like your headphones, Kevin. They look great. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for your questions, and thanks for the questions from YouTube and Facebook. They were also good. I hope, especially to the people who aren't studying, I hope that I didn't offend you or you feel that I disregarded your question. I just want to make clear what is and what isn't, and we really very much appreciate your curiosity and your interest. So thanks.
We will become together as one. We'll be forever connected. Всю силу любви хотим обрести, объединившись навеки. ולא חשוב מה שקורה בחוץ, כי העיקר נמצא בינינו. Cuando nos unimos juntos, nuestro amor gobernará. Hey, hey, rise above and feel the love inside. Hey, hey, busca любовь, там придет скорей. Hey, hey, de corazones unidos, la cava, o se poel bakli. Hey, hey, rise above and feel the love inside. Hey, hey, busca любовь, там придет скорей. Hey, hey, de corazones unidos, la cava, o se poel bakli. אותה משפחה, אותה הרגשה, מעל הפער שבינינו. The higher we go, reaching our soul, we will reveal that connection. Не важно, что происходит вокруг, а важна связь между друзьями.